Picture this. You've got a beautifully machined part in your hands. The inspector just checked the dimensions with their calipers, and guess what? Every single number matches the blueprint perfectly. It's flawless. But then you take that perfect part down to the assembly floor, you try to fit it into the mating component, and it physically will not go in. How on earth is that possible? Well, this exact incredibly frustrating scenario has plagued engineers for decades, and honestly, it costs companies millions of dollars in scrap and rework every single year. I love this quote from an engineer on a popular engineering forum. They hit the nail on the head. They said, you need a better system when traditional numbers fail, and you find yourself literally waving your hands in the air trying to describe the shape you want to the machinist. When those old school dimensions fail to communicate your actual design intent, we need a better language. We have to stop wasting time and money, and we absolutely need a way to ensure that good on paper actually translates to good on the assembly line. So welcome to Lesson 1 of our Master Course. Today, we are diving into the introduction to GD&T and really exploring exactly why modern engineering uses geometric tolerancing to evolve precision. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to break down what GD&T actually is, look at the limits of traditional tolerancing, walk through the 5 main control groups, touch on some real-world industry applications, and finally, see how this acts as a universal engineering language. All right, let's jump right into Section 1. What is GD&T, and how did precision evolve? So what is it? GD&T stands for Geometric Dimensioning and Tolerancing. But think of it less as a set of rules and more as a grammar that perfectly unites what the designer intended with the harsh realities of manufacturing. It is a completely standardized, universal design language made up of strictly defined symbols. Here in the US, it's governed by the ASME Y14.5-2018 standard. And the beauty of it is that it doesn't just tell a machinist how long or wide a part should be. It communicates the exact functional requirements. It tells them exactly how flat a surface must be to seal properly, or how perfectly centered a hole needs to be to accept a bolt. By applying these very specific symbols directly to an engineering drawing, we completely eliminate ambiguity. You get rid of those lengthy, confusing paragraph notes. Instead of writing a novel trying to explain that a valve needs to sit perfectly straight inside a housing, you just drop in a universally understood symbol. That's it. Everyone, from the designer to the machinist making the chips fly to the inspector, immediately knows the exact constraints. Moving on to Section 2, let's compare traditional tolerancing with GD&T. If we look at a really simple mounting plate with some holes in it, traditional coordinate tolerancing, which is just your standard basic plus or minus dimensions, creates this rigid square tolerance zone. But hold on, think about a round bolt going into a round hole. Putting a square tolerance zone on a circular feature, it just doesn't make any logical sense. Modern GD&T, on the other hand, uses something called true position. This creates a circular tolerance zone that perfectly matches how the part actually functions in the real world. And here is the absolute game changer. By using these common GD&T symbols, you can actually allow for more than a 50% greater functional tolerance zone compared to standard linear dimensioning. Think about that. By turning that restrictive square zone into a circle, you scoop up all that extra area in the corners. You can accept way more parts that will perfectly assemble, instead of throwing perfectly good parts in a scrap bin just because they failed some arbitrary old-school coordinate dimension. Looser tolerances mean cheaper manufacturing, and you do it without sacrificing a single drop of quality. But there's another massive danger to the old way of doing things, and that's tolerance stack-up. Without GD&T, small errors compound across assemblies. A recent university case study highlighted this beautifully with a roll cage for a racing vehicle built to score international specs. Since roll cages are made of multiple bent tubes, relying on chained traditional dimensions led to massive alignment failures. The individual parts might have measured out just fine on their own, but when you tried to weld them all together, the errors stacked up and the whole assembly was a total bust. So how do we speak this language? Let's dive into Section 3, the 5 control groups. The ASME standards cleverly break all these symbols down into 5 distinct families, or groups, with each one targeting a very specific geometric characteristic. If you're going to master this language, these are your fundamental building blocks. So let's take a quick look at each one. First up, we have form controls. Form is exactly what it sounds like. It's all about the shape itself, completely independent of any other feature on the part. We're talking about ensuring a cylinder is uniformly straight, or making sure a mating surface is perfectly flat so a gasket doesn't leak. Form basically limits how much the actual physical shape can deviate from its perfect ideal CAD counterpart. Next, we have profile controls. Profile is absolutely fantastic for complex surfaces. It lets you compare a cross-section or even an entire face directly against the ideal CAD shape. It literally creates a 3D tolerance zone wrapping around the part's curves. Think of it like two offset virtual planes creating an envelope around the surface. Every single point on that manufactured surface has to fall somewhere inside that envelope. Then we get into orientation controls, because parts don't just float in space, they have to connect perfectly. Orientation guarantees that mating features sit at the exact right angle to each other. This covers your angularity, perpendicularity, and parallelism. And crucially, these are always measured relative to a specific datum. A datum is just a fancy word for a designated reference surface or axis on your part that grounds the whole measurement. Our fourth group is location controls. And true position is the heavy hitter here. It's one of the most powerful symbols we have, directly replacing those restrictive square coordinate zones we talked about earlier. It defines precisely how much a feature's center point can wander away from its intended destination. This is what ensures your bolts, holes, and pins actually line up on the assembly floor. Finally, we have runout controls. Runout is your best friend when you're dealing with spinning components. It measures the total surface variation, or in plain English, the wobble, that happens when a part is rotated a full 360 degrees on its axis. If you're designing gears, drive shafts, or bearing surfaces, controlling runout is absolutely critical to prevent massive vibration and catastrophic failure. Let's move on to Section 4 and look at some real-world industry applications. So where is this actually being used? Well, everywhere. In aerospace and automotive, human lives literally depend on tight process control, so model-based GD&T is a strict safety requirement. In the consumer electronics world, getting just one tolerance wrong on a high-volume solid-state drive can mean the casing won't snap together, causing millions of dollars in losses. And even in mechanical systems, like a really cool student-built steam engine from our source materials, confusing basic flatness with true parallelism can completely ruin the fit of the mating parts. This language is what guarantees function and fit across every industry. And that brings us to Section 5, the Universal Engineering Language. When a company uses this correctly, model-based GD&T flows seamlessly from the designer's brain straight into the CNC machine and right over to the inspection software without anything getting lost in translation. By embedding what we call semantic or machine-readable GD&T directly into the 3D CAD model, that digital file becomes the absolute single source of truth. Manufacturers get crystal clear constraints that reduce their setup costs, and the quality control team can literally automate their coordinate measuring machine, or CMM programming, because the inspection software just pulls the tolerances directly off the digital model. It's incredible. But I do have to offer a quick word of warning. Going back to that engineering forum, another user dropped this absolute gem of a quote. You should have to put $5 in the shop's beer jar every time GD&T is improperly used. I love that, because it highlights a really common trap. This language has to be used accurately based on functional needs. You don't just use it to make a drawing look smart or fancy. Slapping overly tight tolerances on a part just to play it safe is a surefire way to drive up production costs and slow down the whole shot for absolutely no functional benefit. So, to wrap up our very first masterclass lesson, the big takeaway is that GD&T is all about maximizing your manufacturing tolerances while strictly guaranteeing that your parts will actually assemble and work. It shifts our entire mindset away from just measuring isolated numbers on a page to actually controlling how a physical part exists and interacts in real space. And it does this by organizing the rules into those 5 key families: form, profile, orientation, location, and runout. We've laid some great groundwork today. But, knowing the alphabet isn't exactly the same as writing the book, right? How do we establish the exact unshakable reference frames that keep a plane in the sky or keep a hard drive spinning without failure? Next lesson, engineering drawing fundamentals and the language of GD&T. We are going to translate all this theory into reality. You definitely won't want to miss it. See you there.